Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. We've had an absolutely shocking, how would you word it? A shocking, interesting, questionable interview done by our managing director, Robbie Evans, of course, the managing director of Leeds United, and that is going to be the focus of today's stream. We're going to be looking at what he has said in the interview and talking it through. And like everything in the world, I think that the jump of this and the sort of sensationalism of people is going to be that this is absolutely horrendous. And I think parts of this are horrendous, but I think parts of this, there are truth in it as well. And I think for me, someone who likes to look at things objectively, which I know a lot of you guys are the same, or all of you guys are the same as well, I did want some questions explaining, and I did actually get some answers to some of the questions I had regarding PSR, where we are with PSR, why certain things happen this window, that did actually give me a much more clear understanding. So I know people are going to bash the interview, and don't get me wrong, we're going to go through the whole interview, and I'm going to tell you where I think he got stuff wrong, said stuff that I disagree with, where I don't think that the full truth was being revealed, and almost, I'm not saying he was lying, but not the full truth being revealed, and sort of telling us what we wanted to hear as opposed to probably what was needed to hear. So there's loads of question marks throughout the whole thing. And of course, naturally, I want to get your guys' feedback. I want to see what you guys think about this interview, because I know you guys are rational. You, like me, we don't just want to completely criticise the club for no reason, but we also objectively want to bring down the club when we think it's doing the wrong thing, and when people in the club are saying the wrong stuff. And I do think in this interview we see the best of both worlds. I think we do see stuff clarified, but I also naturally see massive weaknesses as well. In what he said in this sort of shocking reveal all into. Another thing I want to mention as well is, because a lot of journalists have got a lot of stick over the last sort of 48 hours since the transfer window. This is not Berens Cross's fault. This is not Graham Smith's fault. This is not any of the great journalists that cover Leeds United's fault. And actually, the questions that were said in this to Robbie are absolutely brilliant in my opinion. We've basically overturned every stone possible. Would I have even done a good job? But probably not if I were doing that interview. So yeah, I just wanted to shout out to Graham Smith and Berens Cross, because them guys do a really good job, and these questions are fantastic. They really, really sort of push Robbie to the limit and uncover a lot of information that I think, especially us Leeds United fans, we're looking out for. So I am, as I said, but we'll get into it, because there's bits I'm encouraged with and there's bits I'm not encouraged with. So let's start with the main thing. He basically started off by saying they asked him about transfer deadline day and what is the headline of the transfer deadline day. And Robbie Evans responded saying, "I would say our headline is a bad day at the end of a good window. In that when we set back out back in May, we had certain targets as far as key positions, key profiles, estimates of maximum available spend to get towards, and we checked all those boxes. So we brought in all the key players." And this is a dream throughout, by the way. And apologies, by the way, I am slightly dyslexic, and I'm going to get hammered in the comments. I've been hammered for years. Don't really care. That's how it is. So if my reading's not unbelievable, you're going to have to bear with me. But that doesn't mean that my points are not good. It just means that's where we're at with it. But yeah, the truth of the matter is, this is something he mentions throughout the whole interview, because I've read this all through first beforehand. And I think part of the things that I catch from this is that we didn't get all our main targets, did we? That isn't true. We know he obviously mentions Igor Pajau, and he mentions obviously Buonanotte that we both missed out on, and we all know that there were two targets that we did miss out on. But to suggest that they were the only targets we missed out on we just know it isn't true. Where's the conversation about Diarra, who we know missed out on? Habib Diarra, of course, that went to Sunderland. And where is the conversation regarding Sadiqi, who both targets we definitely went for, and we think we definitely with Diarra we bidded for him. And one thing I wouldn't mention, and there's a Berens Cross did a sort of reveal all post this morning, sort of conversation as well, and he said in that Leeds thought Diarra was out of range, but he's ended up at Sunderland. So was he really out of range? I'm not so sure. But yeah. Anyway, as I said, if you guys drop your comments in below, and we'll sort of go through together. But that was sort of his overview, and then he got asked further on about the free agent market in January and the January transfer window. He said he got asked. There is a lot of afternoon to people in the comments as well. I've just seen a comment saying that. There is a free agent market. Obviously, there's basically setting option that there is a free market option. Are Leeds United going to explore it? And Robbie goes on to say that Leeds United are not, basically, it's unlikely, unless anything drastic happens, that Leeds will explore the free market and they will explore possible January moves. Now, there's two bits to this. The first bit for me is that I actually kind of agree with him on part of this. I don't want Leeds United giving Josh Brownhill 100 grand a week. I know a lot of you guys are keen on it, and I can't really fight back on it because we don't have that profile in the team. But my honest take with Josh Brownhill is that he's not ready for Leeds United. That is where I feel with it. I don't think he's good enough to play for Leeds United. I also don't think he's the profile we need for Leeds United. He isn't a creator like people seem to think he is. That isn't the case with Josh Brownhill. It has never been the case with Josh Brownhill. Yes, he scores goals, but I don't want to do a free market. I don't like Eriksson because I think off the ball he's not good enough. And I don't even like Ziyech because I think, again, off the ball, I can't see that working. So for me, the free agent market, these guys are free agents for a reason. No one's taking them up for a reason. I don't think there's good opportunities for Leeds United in the free agent market. That is my honest feeling. So actually, with Robbie on that, I actually agree with him. I don't want Leeds United spending loads of money on Josh Brownhill, if I'm being totally honest. That's my feeling. I know, as I said, I know you people disagree, but that's my personal opinion on the matter. In terms of January, and this links into a lot of what he said in the interview, because I don't want to read it all out because it's kind of boring to do that. But you've probably already watched videos doing that sort of thing anyway. But in the free agent market, or in the January market, basically he said, Gabe's just actually said, I understand your point on Brownhill. He can do a job in the Championship, but hasn't had a class in the Premier League. That's my feeling. I just don't. And it's also, if Josh Brownhill was available for 40 grand a week, I'd do it. He's not 40 grand a week, though. He's 100 grand a week and potentially even more. Wolves have tried to get him. Everton have tried to get him. They've all been priced out of a move, and he looks like he's off to Saudi for that reason, because the money he wants, we're not willing to offer. And I don't think we should be willing to offer, because it would look like a panic to me, and we don't need Josh Brownhill. So that's the Brownhill situation for me. But in terms of January, and the summer window as a whole, which is what we talk about, Leeds United are absolutely hamstrung by PSR. And this is something, if you've watched the channel since it started now, I have banged on about PSR on this channel for weeks and weeks and weeks. Because in the comments below, especially over the last sort of about last week or so, everyone's been saying Leeds United have not spent all the money they had. And I've constantly said, I think they are doing. I genuinely think they are doing. Because they've said this for the last few years. And you can't lie about this because it says it in the financial reports at the end of the season. And if you look at the financial reports and you get it explained to you, Kieran Maguire explained, Leeds United have always been, since the 49ers ownership have come in, as close as possible to PSR without actually breaking PSR. That is what Leeds United have done every step of the way. So why would they change now? And also, why would they lie about doing that and then not do it? It was never going to be the case. And the other thing is, as I said, the 49ers see Leeds United as a project. They want to invest in Leeds United and they want to sell as a profit. If we're in the Championship because they haven't spent proper on the team, that isn't good for any party. It's not good for us, but it's also not good for the 49ers who want a Premier League club, because that is where the value is. They want to sell us for £1 billion. Why? They don't want to not spend on the team and then find us in the Championship. And they've never done that the whole way through. So why would they start doing it now when we actually get to the Premier League? It never made any sense. And we are maxing our PSR, and we have done for the whole time. My issue is with it is it's not an excuse, because there is ways around it. And I've said this on videos, and he really didn't. He tried to explain why they didn't do that in this interview. But my issue is with it is we knew the position we were with PSR. And for the record, people that don't understand it, the reason we're hamstrung with PSR is what I've been saying in comparison to Sunderland. So last year, Sunderland's wage bill, naturally, because they weren't a relegated club getting parachute payments, was a lot less than ours. But not just that, we'd spent a lot more money on transfer fees than they had. So naturally, we're close to the threshold. And actually, of the 61 million threshold, which Robbie says we can lose over a 3-year period, at the current moment, before going into this window, we had already lost 60 million in the last 2 years. So that actually says that Leeds United can lose £1 million this summer. 1 million. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to lose. Like, we get more money because we're playing in the Premier League, and you get the extra TV revenue for playing in the Premier League, which is why we could do a net spend of 100 million this summer, near on abouts. But we can't spend any more because we're hamstrung with PSR. Sunderland are a completely different equation. And I've talked about this, and this was clarified. But with what Robbie said, and he's right, that is true. The only question I've got for him is that, one, you can sell in the summer before the PSR deadline, so you can sell before June, which is number one, which is what I think they were trying to do with Wilson, because they were going to say pay 10 million for Wilson and then raise 10 million PSR sales at the end of June. Two, you can sell players in your current playing squad, which you haven't done. And the third thing, obviously, you can do as well on top of all that. Is that you can, what was the other one? I'm trying to think now. Sorry, I'm talking so fast. Is that we didn't need to buy backup players. We've spent nearly £30 million on backups, and we don't actually have a starting 11 in the attack, in my opinion, worth going for. Did we need to buy Sean Longstaff, Justin, and Bornau? I am not saying they're bad players. That's not what I'm saying. It's just there's a priority list. There is a priority list at Leeds United, and what was more important, getting a backup left back for Justin, or getting an actual starting right winger? And that's where I don't like where the priority list has been. So they're the few things I throw at them. And he mentions in it that the reason we haven't sold players is because we didn't basically get key targets we wanted to. So if we'd assigned Pajau or Rodrigo Muniz, we would have then needed to offload players to afford them players. But because we didn't get them players, we didn't have to offload our existing players, which is what Robbie says in his interview as well. My question back to Robbie, if I was in there, would have been, okay, you didn't want to do that, so you went for much cheaper targets. Why didn't you still sell a Wilfred Gnonto and then go get your secondary top target? So you'd missed out on Pajau, get another top target, go get Backward, or go get somebody else who there would have been on the market. Try go get Nico Gonzalez. I know he went to Atletico, but there's other opportunities in that calibre of player. Go get one of them, rather than keeping your playing squad, rather than keeping Gnonto, who we don't think is going to be good enough, or James, who we don't think is going to be good enough. Sell one of them assets in the window and then use the money that you've got from that to get a second top-tier target, rather than swapping and going, oh, we're just going to basically get no one and play with the squad we've got. That's again where I think that's where they've gone wrong, I think. But yeah, as I said, clarify this by, I do want you guys involved, because I will say stuff that's potentially slightly controversial in this, because I know people are ready to slam this interview through the back door, and it is a PR piece, and I get that. But it doesn't mean that everything he says is lies. Like, we've got to be back and forth, and we've got to say this is wrong and this is right, and I hope I'm doing that in the best way possible. Anyway, we've talked about PSR a bit there and why Sunderland are in a different position. But as I said, if you've been on this channel for a while, you know I actually understand that. I can get where he's coming from. Then he talks about survival difficulty. And he says, well, it's difficult either way. It's certainly a little more difficult without more attackers, and we understand that. We talked in the night. He spoke with Adam. He said that the same view. He spoke, by the way, being Daniel Farke. He had the same view that we did, in that we would have liked, we would have liked to add to it, but we've had a great squad. Did tons of work earlier. We're avoiding 2 points a game. This is another point that I don't like. We're averaging 2 points a game at home, and we'll go with the guys we have. We're averaging 2 points at home. That's what he said. We are averaging 2 points at home. It has been 2 games. You can't do an average over 2 games, pal. That isn't an average. Average has got to be something over a long period of time. That is the whole point of average, why averages were brought into play. Average is to look at something on a big scale and summarise it down to come up with an average. That is what it is. But using it over 2 games is a waste of time. It's nearly as bad as saying, we just beat Arsenal, so that means we're going to beat Man United or whatever, or not Man United because they're awful, or going to beat Man City or whoever. It doesn't make, that is a nonsense comment, and he knows that because he's not daft. So, I know, this just picks through the holes through this interview all the way through, to be fair. But as I said, I wanted to, when I did this, the reason I didn't go live instantaneously is because I wanted to give each side of the argument. So I don't just want to bash the club for everything they do ever. I'm not one of them fans. I like to see the good in things, but I also, if there's not good to be seen, I'm happy to call out the negative as well. He also gets asked about strikers and the injury risk of strikers. With the striker situation, I've said on this channel, and my opinion has been that up front, we're actually going to be okay this season. I honestly think we'll be all right. I like what I've seen from Nmecha so far. I like what I've seen from DCL so far. That is my honest opinion. Now, the injury concerns are true, but he's also true when Robbie Evans afterwards mentions the fact that that we have kept players who've been injured over a long period of time, the likes of Solomon's, the likes of Byram's, we've managed to keep hold of them and we've kept them fit. And that's down to our medical staff doing a fantastic job. And he's right on that, because that is true. But it's still a massive risk, because if it goes wrong, then we're in a right mess. And he mentions that if it goes wrong, we've got Joel Pereira, the Golden Boot winner last year in the Championship. That is a nonsense line, as we all know. That is a nonsense line. Yes, that is true in terms of he won the Golden Boot, but he doesn't actually think. Robbie Evans is not dumb enough to think that Joel Pereira is a good striker in the Prem. He doesn't think it. And he's obviously said and mentioned Okafor as well, saying that. The concern is that we've got nobody creating chances. I know that, and that's fundamentally where I look at this and think this is where they're missing stuff, and this is where they've done stuff wrong, in my opinion. Because yes, as you mentioned, we've got stuff up front, but we haven't got creators in behind, and that's where they fundamentally failed, in my opinion. Which is why this is not a good transfer window, and it's why for me it's such an average one, because we're missing key profiles. We're missing creative attackers. It's everybody knows it. It's even cottoned on now to the out of Leeds United fans. Like, people outside Leeds United understand the issues we have as well, which is when you know you're in a bit of a situation. Then they talk about Rodrigo Muniz was our number one target up front, and obviously we missed out on Rodrigo Muniz, so we ended up with DCL. And it talks about how happy he is that we've got DCL, and this is fantastic. And we thought he was going to go to a Champions League club or a huge club. Well, we are a huge club, but fine. And then he goes on to sort of say that, yeah, they're really happy and they did that. And that was a really class signing, or whatever he goes on to say. He basically goes on to say that they're really pleased with it. That's all good. And looking back, when DCL was announced, I thought it was a crap signing. It was my honest opinion. I thought it was terrible. I didn't think that he added a lot. I didn't think that it was going to be good for us. I thought his injury record was poor. I think his goal scoring record was poor. I thought all them things. Having watched him and having thought about it a bit more and understanding where we are a bit in the pyramid, it's a good signing. Calvert-Lewin's a good signing. He's right on that. Calvert-Lewin is a good signing. It's just, if he gets injured, we are going to be struggling. But I can't go back on it. Like, my opinion is that we've got enough going forward in the actual number 9 area. It's the wide areas and the 10 role where we're suffering for me. And then they go on about relegation release clauses, and he says, "Did you manage to avoid relegation release clauses in the players that you brought in?" That was the question. A fantastic question, by the way. As I said, Graham Smith and Beren Cross, etc., deserve massive credit for this interview because it's so good. And he says, every player's contract is different. I can't say categorically we do not have any relegation. We can say categorically we do not have any relegation loan clauses, which is good because obviously we had a lot of relegation loan clauses last time. But we have basically got potentially buyout clauses like we had with Tyler Adams. This is going to happen, people. Like, you can't have everything you want. Like, and we haven't got everything we want. We've got anywhere near everything we want. But if you're getting good players, they're going to have buyout clauses, and they're going to want buyout clauses because they're not going to want to play in the Premier League. And he also goes on to say, which we're going to find out, if we do get relegated, that these are a good fee. So if Leeds United do go down, I don't know, say Anton Stack's got one, we paid 17 million for him. I'm hoping it's at least 30 million pounds in there. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind. But that is a bet. If we make profit on these players and we can sell, say, a Stack for 30 million next summer, if we do get relegated, God hope we don't. But if we do, that is a miles better scenario than we're in with the relegation loan clauses. The loan clauses were a nightmare because we obviously can't reinvest in the squad. So it kind of right there, but I don't love it, to be honest. I really don't love it. The loan market. This for me is what has been a big concern on the channel, the loan market, a huge concern, because we haven't used the loan market well, and there's no way that Robbie Evans can spin this, in my opinion, to suggest that we've used the loan market well and in any way spin a positive. It basically says with the loan market, to sort of gloss over the full context of not to gloss over the full context, but sort of explain it a bit further. He mentions with the loan market that Leeds United didn't really. He mentions. I think I got the impression from that he didn't actually like the loan market, and they don't think it was a good option because he mentions with the loan market they didn't really want young players to coming in. They wanted players of a certain age range, which we know they were targeting the sort of 25 to 27, 28-year-old bracket. We know that. And he mentions that the only one obviously was Facundo Buonanotte. I disagree with this. I think we could have found better options on loan than just Facundo Buonanotte. Not better options. I think Facundo Buonanotte would have been a brilliant loan signing. But I think there was other options that we could have gone for younger players in, rather than just because they're not at the age range, we're not going to go there. I didn't like that, and I don't think that's true. I just don't think that's. I just don't agree. So yeah, the loan issue is something that we're going to have to bang on for a while about. And this is still a bit of an initial reaction from me as well, naturally. So we're probably going to digress this in more detail in sort of further videos. But the loan signing we got wrong.
We also have massive links into Leipzig and obviously with the RB group because they own us, the football club. And the fact we couldn't do anything there with a loan player, like Gertrude left Leipzig to go to Sunderland. Why we couldn't be involved in that race and we had to spend 10 million on Justin is something that we talked about obviously in the live chat yesterday. And that's bang on. That should have been an option for Leeds United. It really should have been. Exits now. He mentioned we start with the Meslier. Ilya Meslier, there was talk of interest towards him at the end of the window. What happened with him? There was some interest, but not as strong as I expected for a player of his calibre. I don't think he understands the calibre of Ilya Meslier, to be honest, now. He lost his spot late last season, but he's still young, experienced player. Frankly, I don't want him to go somewhere he didn't want to be. So in the end, it was better for both parties that he stayed. This one, I don't think this one's true. I don't know what positive it is for us that Ilya Meslier stays. He runs down his contract. He's now worth less money because he's got less years on his contract. Yes, that works on a PSR standpoint, but obviously, naturally, it doesn't work in terms of the price point. So this doesn't help Leeds United. For me, this is spinning the positive. I don't see when is Meslier going to play this season? When is he going to play? Because in the Carabao Cup we're already out of. In the FA Cup, Darlow's going to play in goal, and Perry's obviously going to start the season. When is Ilya Meslier going to play? I'm glad he's not, but when is he actually going to play? So I don't agree with this. Then they talk about Mateo Joseph, and he says, we think very highly of Mateo. He has the right profile at any level, including the Premier League. Disagree. But he needs minutes. His loan took time because every club wanted a buy option. We refused. The only way he was leaving was without an option. Brilliant, but that's kind of obvious. For me, with Mateo Joseph, I'd have sold him for PSR room. I would have honestly sold Mateo Joseph. I'd have looked at the fee in around the sort of 7 to 8 million, which I think would have been feasible, and I'd have moved him on. I think Joseph potentially is a player in that at championship level. I'm not sure he's ever going to be a Premier League player, Mateo Joseph, personally. I haven't seen enough. I think he's too rash in the final third, and yes, that can get better in the final third. But my honest opinion with Mateo Joseph is he's never going to be, for me, a good Premier League player. So, in my opinion, what we should have been doing this summer for PSR wiggle room is selling players like Mateo Joseph, which would have allowed us to buy other players because of the PSR wiggle room that it would have given us. Because, of course, Mateo Joseph coming through the academy is pure profit. Largy Ramazani now. Same story as Mateo. Large is a very talented but needed minutes. Agreed. No buy option in his loan either. We added Jack Harrison and Noah Okafor. We didn't add Jack Harrison, but I know what you're trying to mean. So he needs to go out and play. He's at a club coached by someone we know and trust. It's a good environment. Future remains open here. And that's where I'm at with Ramazani as well. I think on Ramazani, honestly, that I sort of get why we did the loan. I said that the other day. I understand why we did the loan. We all rate him as a player. I think everyone in the live chat, everyone I've ever spoke to at any game, has always suggested that he's a really good player. And we all know he's a good player. But in the same breath as him being a good player, you've got to find a way for him to fit into the team. So, I don't know, there's loads of keepers that are good keepers, but are they going to play over Perry? There's good centre-backs we could have got, but are they better than what we've got? So, and the fact of the matter is that Daniel Farke doesn't rate Ramazani like we all do. And we've seen that continuously. So why we continue to play him and decrease his value more by him not playing, I just don't get that. And I think in the end, that was probably the right thing to do because of the coach we have, not because of the player. Because some players don't suit certain managers, and we've seen that throughout the time at Leeds United. When Bielsa turned down some players that we all thought would have been really good for him because they didn't have an attribute that he didn't like, and that is how it's always going to be, I'm afraid. So we can't sort of look at that any differently, in my opinion. Then he talks about Patrick Bamford, and he says, "Look, we really like Bamford." Blah blah blah. But yeah, that is sort of the premise of the interview, really. As I said, this is more of a sort of instant reaction to it, naturally. And as I said, I want to get you guys involved with this. But my overarching feeling is that this obviously is done as a PR piece. And it's obviously, when people talked about this interview, and I know I heard some other YouTube creators talking about it, my honest feeling always was that we were never going to like what they were going to say because we're not happy with the outcome of the transfer window. So nothing could have been said today that we're ever pleased with, in my opinion. which I think is something to bear in mind. So when people are always going, Scott, oh, we need to hear from the 49ers. We need to hear from the 49ers. And we do need to hear from the 49ers because I want to be in an ownership group that lets the fans know what they're trying to do at all times. I want that to be part of it, and I want us to feel like we're involved with the sort of the running of the club in a roundabout way, or at least getting an understanding of what's going on. But in the same breath as all that, we were all frustrated with this transfer window. A lot of us think we've done a poor job. They were never going to say anything that was going to please us. So this sort of argument that if they come out and say that they did wrong, we're all going to be like, wow, legends, was never going to happen. It wasn't going to happen, which is why I wasn't that bothered about hearing about them in the first place, to be honest. Let them do the talk on the pitch and let's see if they're right, because I don't think they are. I don't think we're going to score enough goals. Everybody doesn't think we're going to score enough goals. But let the talking do on the pitch. If you think we're going to score enough goals, Robbie, let's find out. Let's see what happens. But I think there is a question mark there for sure now. But overall, as I said, this is not... There's parts of this interview that I understand, and I like why we explain the Pax out and the Muniz money, or the Pajau and the Muniz money. That's one thing that I was not understanding why that was the case. I couldn't get my head around where that money had gone to an extent. I thought we'd spent it on certain players, but we hadn't spent enough for me to think that we had spent it on certain players. So the understanding that the reason we didn't do sales, because it's linked to sales, which I didn't understand either, was because we didn't get key targets that we wanted. So therefore, we didn't need to sell. Basically, the truth is that we missed out on our big targets. They didn't say that in this thing, and they said that we got all the targets. We didn't. We missed out on key targets, so we didn't actually spend the money that we had there. And because we didn't spend all the money we needed to, then we didn't need to sell players because we didn't need to fund the sales of the purchase of players. So if we'd have bought Pajau, we would have needed to fund it from a sale. Because we didn't manage to get them targets, we missed out on them all. We then didn't need to sell them players to sort of match it, which is what I've been calling for. Why was that the case? Why didn't we sell? Well, we didn't sell because we didn't get our targets, but they don't say that, which is where the lack of sort of clarity comes in. But that's the truth of it. The truth of it is, if you want a map of the window, what happened this summer, the reason it's gone wrong, in my opinion, is we lost our management team going into the summer. Instantly, we lost all our management team. The CEO went in Angus Kinnear, which, by the way, I know we think Kinnear's garbage, and that's fine, but we lost him right before the end of the window. We lost Underwood, who was a key man for recruitment for us, and they basically all got wiped out. Then we promoted people. We didn't have time then to bring in a complete new strategy of our transfer policy because we've been working on this for years, as we know. So then when they all leave, what we tried to do, rather than going out into Europe and going and get some of the best talent in Europe in terms of from a director of football who would come in and revolutionise our strategy again, we wanted to stick with what we've got, and we over-promoted people in the club to roles that they couldn't do. So then you've got a brand new team that are doing it for the first time, who are not ready to do the job, who then go into the window, underprepared, and then we end up doing a poor window. Because they even, like, some of the quotes throughout this whole thing, and more Baron Cross, what he said this morning, was concerning. It was exactly what I thought. They were over-promoted, these people, because we got our management team wiped out by Everton. This is the truth of it. They were over-promoted. Which is why we're seeing quotes where they're saying that they were happy because they got close to getting Pajau. This is why these quotes came out. Because they actually were happy about that. Because they're not ready, and they're like, wow, I can't believe what we're doing because you didn't expect to be this good. But they weren't that good in comparison to what we needed. But from where they were, they probably were doing all right because they were over-promoted into the roles. And then we went into the window with people who've been over-promoted, who were a brand new staff, and then we started the window okay, and then it all fell away when it really mattered, and you had to get the big targets over the line, and we couldn't get the big targets over the line. That's the truth of it. That is the truth. But the people who've got to answer for it are probably not Robbie Evans, to be honest. They're probably not Adam Underwood. They're probably not Tom Davis, is it, the head of recruitment. They're probably the 49ers, because the 49ers are the ones that put them in positions. And that's the truth of it. I also think there's something to mention, because he talked about PSR in this a lot, and about the damage that the PSR has done. because we can obviously, as we know, we can lose 61 million. We'd already lost 60 million. We had 1 million to lose wiggle room this summer. And I know we're going to lose a lot more, but that's obviously because we get more from TV revenue. So we actually are not going to lose any money this year, basically. But could we have done less business in the Championship? Could we have not bought Ramazani last summer, saved ourselves that 10 million that he nearly cost us, and then used that for the transfer window this summer? We could have done, but I didn't want to do that at the time, to be fair. So I don't really blame him too much for that. But it was always going to be a hard transfer window when you're knackered with PSR. You've got a brand new cut. You've got a brand new recruitment team. You've got a brand new management team, and you're going into a transfer window without underprepared because you've lost all your main staff, and you're hamstrung with PSR. And that is the truth of the window. And if people like it or lump it, that's the reality of the show. And yeah, you're right, we're underprepared. And yes, you're right, we didn't get attacking bodies in. And that is all true. But that it comes down for me to from right to the top, from the Parags of the world and all these people who make the top decisions at Leeds United. They're the people that are going to be held more responsible for me than Robbie Evans, who I think's probably been overpromoted, potentially Adam Underwood, who's been overpromoted, potentially Tom Davis. Because I think what we also did is, I think it hasn't come out enough that Everton were trying to take all our staff. I think Angus Kinnear, when he left to go to Everton, has brought so many people to Everton with him, so many, that the club are like, God, we're going to lose everybody here. All our strategy that we've worked on for years with all these people and all these staff in the club on the top management roles, we're going to lose them all to Everton right now. They're going. And I think Parag panicked and went round and went, right, okay, we'll overpromote you. Not in terms of just to keep them around. What do you do? Like, if you're in a business and you're going to lose all your staff, what do you do? Do you let them all go and replace them with new ones before a big transfer window? Or do you think I'm gonna promote them to a different role, a higher role, to keep them at the club? You might do that, and that's what we've done. But it's been a huge mistake because they've messed it up now. And this was such an important transfer window for us. And now obviously they're trying to cover the back with these interviews and that sort of thing, and that's going to happen. But that's the reality of the transfer window. We lost half our staff to Everton. We were going to lose more and more and more, so we over-promoted the staff to keep the consistency, because we couldn't put a new plan in there and bring a new DOF because we didn't have time. And they went into a transfer window underprepared with a completely different management team. And surprise, surprise, and were PSR strong. And then surprise, surprise, we couldn't deliver in the transfer window. And that's where we're at. And then it brings us back to today, where now we're still PSR hamstrung. We're not really going to do any business in January unless it's going to be a sell to buy basis. We've got PR pieces coming out annoying the whole fan base. We've got quotes coming out that they can't, that they're happy by certain things that, as we all know, they shouldn't be happy with, like getting close to getting Patty Zhao. But it's because they're not experienced enough. Yeah. That's what's cost us. Everton coming in from our top people. And by the way, it's the 49ers' job to recruit new people to come in. But that is what's the whole thing based. This whole transfer window has been cost by Everton coming in for our top management staff. That's what's caused all this, and was not getting proper replacements in and going with what we had and over promoting because they were going to go probably to Everton as well. And we couldn't wipe out the whole force. And we're also completely PSR hamstrung. But as I've talked about, the PSR's slightly different excuses, because obviously there is ways around it. We could have sold players, which we didn't do. We could have sold in June, which we didn't do. And we also knew about this issue. We knew this was going to be a problem. So you can't really use PSR as an issue when you know it's going to be an issue. You've got to find creative ways around it. We know clubs that have done this. Like clubs have sold the women's team. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but can you sell your women's team? I'm not saying we should. I don't know. What do you guys think anyway? If you are watching right now, let me know in the comments what you think. As I take a quick drink of water. But yeah, this idea that everything's fantastic and we've got all our key targets and stuff, it's just not true, is it? As I said, I think I've been quite reasonable here, and I think I've been quite fair-headed, and I think that sort of parts of it, I've tried to understand the reasoning, and I've tried to accept some of it, but some of it's just like, some of it's, but it's a PR piece, isn't it? This has been done to try sort of calm everybody down. But which with some of the phrasing, he's never going to calm everybody down. And also telling us that they're going to do stuff in January, he's never going to calm us down. Although I do think with that they're saying they're not going to do any free agents and they're not going to do it in January. I wonder if they've learned from this summer and learned what's happened this summer and how they've talked about it's all going to be brilliant and they're going to spend all this money and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And then I wonder what's happened is they've gone at the end of the window, we didn't quite deliver here. Should we not make that mistake again? And should we damp it? And should we sort of calm expectations for the next upcoming transfer windows? So we don't end up getting clipped up like we're going to do with Prague. Like I said yesterday that if you want to get a viral clip right now in the Leeds sphere, clip up everything Prague said since we've been promoted and put it out with like some sort of laughing compilation over the top of it or some laughing sound over the top of it. It'll go viral because there's so many clips. But words are cheap, aren't they? Words are cheap. I can say that I'm going to take over Leeds United tomorrow and I'm going to spend every single penny I've got and I'm going to turn the Ellen Road into a 100,000 seater stadium. But that's all good until you do it. So, you know. What a day. But as I said, I knew this was going to happen. I absolutely knew it. Not that I want to be a know-it-all. No, that's not the case. But I knew this idea that they're going to hear one interview from a top guy at Leeds and everything's going to be sound and we're all going to be happy. It was just never realistic. Because there's no answers there's nothing they're going to say that's going to make us really happy. Is that what could they have said? That we're going to sign someone tomorrow? But you can't sign anyone tomorrow. It's done. But yeah, anyway, this has sort of been my instant reaction to Robbie Evans' interview. I hope I've tried to be as non-biased as I can either way, and sort of. But in the same breath, like I'm going to show emotion because I actually care about Leeds United and I desperately want to stay up because I know if we stay up for 1 year, how possible it is that we can then stay up for a good amount of time. Because then you get your extra money on top of next year and you can go again. And obviously, then we'll be after this summer, we're at the end of a 3-year cycle. So then we can go spend again. Anyway, thanks you all for watching, as always. And I will catch you maybe later tonight, probably tomorrow, though. See you all later, everybody. Bye for now.